This is Julianne Condia, host of Rewritten. Thank you so much for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Daniel Poppy, host of How to Write Good here on Public House Media. I just want to thank you for listening to the following broadcast brought to you by Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope that you'll come check out my show, How to Write Good, the writing show that is not about writing. A new show of How to Write Good comes out every Wednesday, so don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of How to Write Good. Again, thanks for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Throughout history, the course of sports has been shaped by one thing: the fans.
From the moments you never dreamed of,
Hall, the runner, loose ball, it's good! Gonzaga, the slipper still fits!
To the moments that still give you nightmares.
Behind the bag, it gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight and the Mets win it. He's in! Patriots win the Super Bowl! Brady has his fifth!
through the good and the bad, fans have helped change the games we watch and the players we love.
They may not be the most logical people.
You are a factory of sadness! I'll see you Sunday.
But they know their teams better than anybody.
They'll blow in the ninth.
You may not always see them, but you know where to find them.
After all, there's nothing quite like the view from the cheap seats.
Broadcasting is part of the Public House Media Network.
Grab a chair and enjoy all there is in
The cheap seats.
Oh, and what a fortnight it has been over the last month. Everything from the World Cup to Wimbledon to maybe some teams pulling away in Major League Baseball. The trade deadline just 2 weeks away. The Home Run Derby, the All-Star Game, is this week. It is MLB All-Star Week. All of that fun stuff is sure to be discussed here today in the Cheap Seats on this Monday, July 16, 2018. Hello, everybody. Welcome way up high. Christian Heimall along with John Lauder, as we are every single Monday, presented by Squadcast.fm and broadcasting on the Public House Media Network. John, it's been a fun month. I know when we say month, we think like the month of July, the month of June, but it's been a very fun 4 weeks in the world of sports.
Yeah, there's been a lot of good stuff going on, Christian. Obviously, the World Cup has dominated the headlines. Wimbledon recently. You mentioned Major League Baseball. I mean, it's crazy to think that the American League is basically set already.
Yeah.
But the National League, there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on there. A number of teams could still make the playoffs, and with Manny Machado and Bryce Harper and some of these other pitchers, the trade deadline could be very interesting. So there's some good stuff right now. Sometimes the summer's looked at as, kind of dead months. Not right now in the world of sports, not even close.
No, it's been a lot of fun. And then when you throw in the NBA Finals and free agency and the NBA and NHL, it's been a really, really fun 4 weeks here of sports. So we get into MLB All-Star Week. We'll touch on all the Major League Baseball headlines coming up towards the end of the show. Zach Wolpoff of Your Soccer Passport and also brother of one of our hosts of the Cheap Seats on Wednesday, Max, he's going to join us a little bit later on. He was in Russia for some of the group stage games, and as part of Your Soccer Passport, which you can hear on Public House Media, give us his thoughts on the World Cup. And we want your thoughts as well. Our poll question today, we'll jump right into it. Was this the best World Cup ever? I've heard that from a lot of different people. John and I will give our thoughts a little bit later. I think you just gave yours, but but it has certainly been a lot of fun. But we want to start with the All England Club and Wimbledon, because it was a fun tournament. It was an interesting one that kind of I don't know how to describe it. Really shocking to see Roger Federer go down to Kevin Anderson in the semifinal, but then to see what Novak Djokovic did after that tremendous semifinal against Rafael Nadal, you can't deny that Novak is still one of the elites in the game.
Right, and to win his fourth Wimbledon is impressive in its own right. I believe it's his 13th major, and when you consider what Anderson had to do just to get to the final. I mean, that semifinal against John Isner was one of the greatest tennis matches in the history of Wimbledon.
Yep.
26-24 in the fifth set. It looked like nobody wanted to win. And look, I mean, I'll be completely honest. I was rooting for the American.
Of course.
I remember when Andy Roddick made the final. I think that was all the way back in, I don't even remember.
That was 2006. A long time ago.
I mean, it was a long time ago. And I'm pretty sure the last American to win the Wimbledon was Michael Chang. So it's been a long time for an American. John Isner, who I believe is 33 now, I don't think his career has gone exactly the way he had planned, but to be one match away from the final and to lose like that was tough. But, Novak Djokovic, I feel like recently has, I don't want to say been forgotten, but has sort of been put on the back burner because he's been struggling. And obviously, Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal continue to be the two best in the sport. But good for Djokovic getting back on the top of the mountain at Wimbledon and winning another one. And, regardless of your thoughts on tennis, Wimbledon is always a great tournament. The All England Club with all the history and sort of all the, the pomp and circumstance. Very impressive for Djokovic to come out and win another one. But you have to give Anderson his due. He had a great tournament. And to be able to not only beat Federer, but then outlast Isner after over 6 hours, don't want to forget about him despite losing the final.
Yeah, no, I mean, really, the semifinal was amazing. When you looked at how they all kind of set up, both semifinals were amazing. The quarterfinals were even impressive because you had at least one big name in each of those quarterfinals, whether it be Isner, whether it be Nadal, Djokovic, or Federer. You had those four guys all in different quarterfinals, which certainly helped. But I mean, I asked this question last week when I filled in on Wednesday, was how much does it really matter to Americans if there's an American not in it? And we still remember, arguably one of the greatest tennis matches of all time was Nadal and Federer, that amazing 5-set thriller. I want to say that was Wimbledon 10 years ago.
I'm pretty sure it was too, yeah.
Which was amazing. And by the way, that Wimbledon that you're talking about with Andy Roddick was 2009 against Federer.
Oh, okay.
77 games and a fifth set, the longest men's Grand Slam final in history. But yes, so I mean, it's one of those things that's impressive to watch because, like you said, I mean, Novak has been struggling lately, but he is still so damn talented and so much fun to watch. And to see him do that, his fourth Wimbledon was absolutely awesome. That being said, as much as we love, it's so strange. I wonder if we took a poll of the entire United States and you asked them, would you prefer parity, where you have like 4 or 5 dominant, really talented, maybe not dominant, but talented guys, teams, athletes in their sport? Or would you prefer a dominant figure that gets knocked off every once in a while? Because, and I asked that, John, because that's what we had in Wimbledon. You had 4 or 5 really talented men's tennis players all there at the peak. And then you had, on the women's side, the greatest ever, Serena Williams, undoubtedly, being denied a 24th career Grand Slam title to a 30-year-old former world number 1 in Angelique Kerber, who just, she went out and I hate to say wiped the floor with Serena, but 6-3, 6-3 looks, that score looks worse than it was.
Well, yeah, for sure. But when you're talking about individual sports, you want some dominant figures. Let's not look any further than golf with Tiger Woods. You want dominant figures drive traffic, drive interest, drive eyeballs, viewership. 100%. But yeah, sometimes it is good to have that, giant fall, because it does not only give hope to others in the sport, but it does create some extra interest because, not that it's a bad thing for Serena to win, but you really want her winning all 4 majors every single year. When you've got 23 of them, you've been doing a lot of winning. But she deserves a lot of credit. I mean, to be able to come back after having the baby, nearly died in her pregnancy. I mean, what she dealt with in her personal life, to come back and, win the Australian, have to, go out of the French with an injury and then get all the way to the finals in Wimbledon, just sort of proves what we already knew, that not only is she the greatest women's tennis player ever, she's one of the greatest athletes we've ever seen. But an impressive performance for Angelique Kerber to come out and get that victory. But yeah, you've got to have a couple of really dominant figures, especially in individual sports when it's just that one player, out on the court or the course or whatever it is. You need a couple of dominant figures to really bring that interest for every single major.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with that. I mean, I think, and I've said this multiple times, I mean, you look at like I've argued this with people before who have said that they hate watching the NFL because it's always the Patriots, they hate watching the NBA because it's always the Warriors. You're a liar because you're going to watch to see who beats them. That's what is most intriguing. It's not so much how like UConn women's basketball. We didn't keep watching to see how far their win streak would go. We kept watching to see who would actually beat them.
Exactly.
So, that's what makes it kind of fun. So, but congratulations to both Angelique Kerber and to Novak Djokovic on Wimbledon titles. And now it moves on to the U.S. Open in a little bit, in just a couple of weeks, I believe. We'll have that over there in New York, which will be fun to see what happens there and see if these two players, see if any of them, who are, Serena, it'd be interesting to see how Roger Federer responds in the U.S. Open. After bowing out in the quarterfinal. I don't think he expected that to happen. You're in the cheap seats here on Public House Media, presented by Squadcast.fm. That's John Lauder. I'm Christian Heimall. You can find us on Facebook. Wow, I almost just did a shameless plug there without even realizing it.
That's Cheap Seats. Plug it, baby, plug it.
The Cheap Seats by Public House Media. Go to our Facebook page, vote, was this the best World Cup tournament ever? We'll discuss that with Zach Wolpoff of Your Soccer Passport in just a little bit. But I also want to mention, John, here, there was something that happened on Saturday night, and I didn't even know it was happening until I was preparing for this show and was looking for some headlines. Apparently Manny Pacquiao still fights. Did you know that?
No.
So Manny Pacquiao on Saturday night, it was Sunday morning Malaysia time. They were fighting in Malaysia. Manny Pacquiao defeated, let's see, who is this guy? Lucas Matisse for a secondary welterweight title with a 7th round TKO. It was the first knockout since 2009 for Manny Pacquiao. I had no idea that he was fighting. I had no idea.
Yeah, you and everybody else.
I mean, but here's what's insane. A lot of people are saying that this win prove that he's still got a lot left in the tank. The dude is 39 years old. He's been fighting for 23 years. This was his first fight in over a year. He's a full-time senator in his native Philippines. But there are people saying that this proves that he might be able to continue fighting, which is insane.
But why?
Exactly.
Yeah, why? I mean, first of all, who is this guy he fought?
Lucas Matisse, 35 years old from Argentina, 39-5 now with a record of 36 knockouts.
Okay, I mean, that's not terrible, but who has he fought?
Exactly.
And I also feel like, Manny Pacquiao getting his 60th, all-time victory would have been, a little bit more of a big deal. But
yeah,
I had no idea. I mean, part of it was probably because it was in Malaysia.
Right.
And it's been over a year. But, I mean, here's the problem with boxing. And, look, I am far from an expert when it comes to boxing.
You and me both.
Don't watch it much at all. But I feel like boxing is just trying so desperately to hold on to these older stars of the sport that, really are kind of done. Floyd, Manny. I mean, it's kind of time to put some of these guys to bed. And Klitschko. It's like, bringing out the same old elephant at the circus.
Right.
It's kind of time to let him be and try to find some youngsters.
Boxing is kind of like baseball in that sense. We're still holding on to Derek Jeter, Alex Rodriguez, David Ortiz, and instead of Albert Pujols. I mean, to his credit, Albert is still worthy of playing in the major leagues. Instead of trying to really promote the fact that you might have 5 of the greatest players of all time right now in the sport, all under the age of 26, and they don't do a great job promoting it. But it also feels, the other part that issue I have with boxing is boxing to me is more confusing than European soccer. Is I have no idea. I have no idea what belt is most prestigious. I have no idea what weight class is more competitive. Like it's embarrassing almost with these combat sports and how many different types of belts there are. But that being said, Lucas Matisse, similar size to Manny Pacquiao, but a guy who's also struggled with lefties, struggled with southpaws, which of course we know Manny is probably the greatest left-handed fighter of all time. But after 19 months, I don't know, man. It's been a long time for Manny to fight, and zero fanfare, zero publicity, and I don't know how many people are actually going to start clamoring for more Manny Pacquiao fights. We saw Pacquiao Mayweather. It wasn't fun. It wasn't enjoyable. Good for Manny to win. He keeps his name in the headlines. I wouldn't hate seeing him fight again, but at the same time, I'm so annoyed and so done with it that like you said, we're holding on to the old guard. We're doing the same thing in the UFC with Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz for the third time. These dudes haven't fought in 12 years, and they're going to fight for a third time. Like, it's embarrassing.
Yeah, I feel like if you're saying that a 39-year-old has a lot left in the tank when it comes to boxing, you're sort of holding out hope for something that's not really there.
Or you're saying that there's not really much there in boxing.
Right. For sure.
Lots still to get to. When we return, we're going to touch on the World Cup. Was it the best one of all time? A tremendous, exciting tournament, but is it worthy of best ever qualification? And more importantly, and this is what I want to know, is as great as it was, what were some of the bad things about it? Because I've got one that was just absolutely atrocious. It was really, really bad, and I hope it gets changed before 2022 comes through. We've got a lot to get to here. You're in the Cheap Seats on the Public House Media Network, presented by Squadcast.fm.
I'm the Greg.
And I am Dave Show.
We host the Greg and Dave Show on Public House Media.
Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out our show, The Greg and Dave Show, where we talk about strange, bizarre, and sometimes just downright quirky news stories that you may not have heard about.
A new show comes out every Wednesday. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes. And hey, thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Nicole Kelly, host of Loud and Proud here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Loud and Proud, where we talk about issues facing the disability community. A new show comes out weekly. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Loud and Proud. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Back inside the Cheap Seats here on the Public House Media Network, John Lauder and Christian Heimall with you on a Monday morning, July 16th, 2018. Don't forget, it's Prime Day today, by the way. Now, we're not sponsored by Amazon. We're sponsored by Squadcast.fm. But if you're an Amazon guy like me, you better be involved today on Prime Day. It's going to get hot and heavy.
You could get Amazon Alexa today and then ask her to subscribe to the Cheap Seats.
There you go. See, that's how we link it all together.
Perfect.
Make sure
presented
you check us out on
Squadcast.fm.
That's right. Make sure you check us out on Twitter for nuggets just like that. You can follow Christian on Twitter at Chris Heimall, ChrishHeimall. I'm a good speller. And you can follow me on Twitter at John_Lauder, JON_LAUDER. The World Cup has ended after a tremendous month of soccer. Sadly, it ended with France winning, which is really never good for anybody. But the French team was brilliant the entire tournament. It was an incredible final, and they win 4-2 over Croatia, a team that nobody expected to be in the final, and they made it all the way there. So brilliant soccer for both teams, a great tournament. And after what's been a tough couple of years for FIFA, Christian, they get just what they needed, an incredible World Cup here in 2018.
Yeah, they certainly got what they were hoping for, obviously. When you're looking at the tremendous group stage games that they had, you look at the fact that Belgium and France, the semifinals were beautiful. I mean, gorgeous. I know
Yes.
The semifinal that you were really had at stake wasn't great for you in terms of how it ended, but
that was a great game.
Great game. The final three matches were just beautiful from a semifinal and a final perspective. So exactly what FIFA needed. And here's what I'll tell you, John. I think this was a World Cup that America needed, because you went in right before with the announcement of 2026 coming to North America. The U.S. isn't playing in this year's World Cup. So there's an opportunity to kind of see what the rest of the world is able to do. And surprisingly enough, I was really impressed with the ratings, really impressed with the overall general support that the sport of soccer got from some of these games because of how quality the matches were and some of the way that the players were. Now, obviously, you had people upset with Neymar flopping, and I've been very upset with how Mbappe has embellished himself, even though he's a tremendously young, talented player. But you're going to have people like that throughout, and I don't know how we fix that ever, if it ever gets fixed in soccer. But I think this was a World Cup that not only FIFA needed, but I think the United States soccer fans and even the fringe fans needed as well.
Oh, for sure. And it's amazing that you look at a tournament where you have no Italy, no Netherlands, no United States. Chile didn't make it either. I mean, some really good teams weren't there. Germany eliminated early. No Portugal at the end. No Argentina at the end.
No Neymar,
no Brazil at the end.
Yeah.
Right. And it still ended up being brilliant from start to finish. Obviously, England was an incredible story. Nobody expected them to get that far. Same with Croatia.
Right.
Belgium, though they didn't get to the final, got themselves to the semifinals for just the second time ever. And then France, who has done absolutely nothing in 20 years, gets to their third World Cup final and wins their second one. But the other thing, like you mentioned, was, really seeing the emergence of some incredible young stars. I mean, on the world stage, Harry Kane winning the Golden Boot, Kylian Mbappe, N'Golo Kante, and then some established players stepping up their games, Luka Modric, who plays for Real Madrid. I mean, there was just so many great players, great moments. And this was also a tournament that really showcased the technical skill of set pieces.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, England, the entire tournament, only scored 3 goals in free play. I mean, everything else was from set pieces. And, even though that's not the way a lot of people would like it to be, it's also very exciting in another way, because it shows the ability, the tactical sense of setting up a free kick. And there were some beautiful moments. I mean, the England goal at the beginning of the semifinal on that free kick is one of the more gorgeous goals you're going to see in a World Cup. And just that tactical side of it was really on display as well.
Definitely. And of course, this being the first World Cup with VAR, I think was big as well, because some of those things that people usually get upset about, referees missing calls, is one of the things that we always get upset about in the United States. You didn't have that, because they went and fixed those calls. They didn't fix as many of them as I thought they probably should have, or maybe could have. But it was still a very big benefit that you had that opportunity to be able to change things around. And I think the addition of VAR, video assisted replay, was huge in this World Cup, and it's something that should be continued going forward. I don't know if it's something that should make its way into, say, the Premier League or the Champions League or La Liga or whatever it is, but it's definitely something that I think added to the success of this World Cup.
It's interesting that you mentioned the VAR, because some people are complaining about it, because if not for the VAR, France doesn't get that second goal off the penalty.
Right.
And though, yes, it was a handball. It's kind of that argument of, should we let a robot call balls and strikes in baseball? So,
but at the same time, when a championship is on the line, you want to get the call right. And I think that's what the most important part is. Now, I will say this, John, and this is just me being nitpicky here. I had one glaring problem with this World Cup, and it needs to get fixed. American sportscasters, we need to be better at calling soccer games, because all due respect to the guys, I know they put in a lot of effort, they put in a lot of work.
Sure.
But I miss Ian Dark. I miss the Premier League guys on NBCSN, the people that were there and calling the matches for Fox Sports. Most of them had the excitement level at a 12 right at the start, and it was unnecessary. I felt like they were behind the plays a lot of times. It almost felt like they weren't there actually in the building, when obviously they were. Sometimes you just let the picture speak for itself. And I was just kind of almost, and again, this is, John, I mean, you and I are, we were trained to do this, for 10, 11 years now. We've been training for this kind of stuff and how to do it. But soccer is one of those ones that American sportscasters don't get taught how to do it. So there aren't many great ones. Like, for instance, it should be done similar to hockey. Doc Emmerich is a classic example of how to do it the right way, where you let it breathe. You don't need to fill in every single detail. And I felt like at times I was just kind of annoyed with the broadcast, which is a very nitpicky thing to say.
Yeah, no, it was rough. I mean, Fox overall, I don't think did a particularly good job. Most of the analysts I didn't think were great either. Just too many American voices, Do you want British people calling football? No. American football, I mean. The best broadcast team by a mile was Derek Ray and Ali Wagner, who did all the England games.
Yes.
And it wasn't even close. I mean, the differences between them and everybody else was ridiculous. Now, Rob Stone and Kate Abdo did a really nice job hosting. Now, Kate Abdo is British and does stuff for BBC and Sky Sports and all that. But if I never heard Alexi Lalas talk again, that would be the best thing ever. He is the worst. But yeah, I agree. There should have been British announcers. Fox was adamant in putting their American broadcasters on the games, and the game suffered. I mean, you want guys like Derek Ray, like Ross Dyer, Ian Dark. I mean, it just makes a difference when your entire life has been soccer and it's sort of the lifeblood of what you do in your country. And you're right. As American sportscasters, especially, with sports that, there's more pockets without action. Yeah. There's so much space. There's too much filling in. We're always trying to fill in stuff. And British announcers are so good at letting it stay back. And
I will say this. Steve Cangelosi is very good. Steve Cangelosi, who does the New York Red Bulls and does the
Devils,
the New Jersey Devils. He is talented at it. So I would have liked to have seen him, but obviously he's got some MLS responsibilities there. So but again, I'm being very nitpicky. Overall, I thought it was a great World Cup for FIFA and for the United States, and kind of has. And don't forget, everybody is saying on Twitter, we have to wait 4 more years. No, you don't. You got the Women's World Cup coming up next year, and guess what? The Americans actually have a chance to win it. So that's another way to get excited. Another place to get excited for.
Yeah. Now, obviously, big changes coming up too. The 2022 World Cup's going to be in the winter because it's in Qatar. It's going to be November and December, which is going to be a problem. I mean, it's right smack in the middle of the Premier League and other leagues too. Yep. I'm not really sure how that's going to work out.
MLS so that's playoffs.
It's going to be weird. And then in 2026, there's going to be 48 teams, which I personally do not like. So I'm not sure how that's going to work either. So things could look very different after this World Cup. So savor this because it's going to be different moving forward. And it really was just a great tournament all the way around. And even though it's more special because it's every 4 years, I almost wish it was every 2, but that's being a little greedy.
Just a little bit. That's what we got the European Championships for. So
that's right.
It'd be nice if maybe CONCACAF got a little bit better in that sense. But
yes,
we'll figure out a lot more of that as we move forward. So John, I mean, we started off talking about our poll question. Let's answer that poll question real quick. Was this the best World Cup tournament ever?
Yeah, I mean, this is a hard question because with anything that's the best ever, you're always, arrested by the moment. You're always, I mean, yeah, it's the best World Cup ever because I just watched it and it was amazing.
Right.
Okay. I mean, 1986, Diego Maradona literally takes a country on his back all the way. I mean,
1994, the emergence of American soccer on the world stage.
Correct.
In America.
Right. Germany just blitzing everyone in 2014 was an incredible performance. I mean,
Australia
I think overall,
in 2006, Australia and Italy.
Yes, Tim Cahill for sure.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of really great moments. It's tough to say. I guess I would say yes, just because of everything surrounding FIFA, all the great performances, some really good stories, and the fact that it was such a compelling and strong tournament without a lot of the top teams making it far also made it compelling. So I guess I'll say yes. I almost feel like it's low-hanging fruit to say yes, but I'm going to do it anyway.
I'm going to say yes simply because it feels like we're taking a step forward. Not just with FIFA, but with American soccer. I feel as though the country is starting to rally more behind the sport. And I say that every 4 years. But the fact that the U.S. wasn't in this one and you still had what felt like a growth in interest, to me makes it, it's certainly been the best men's tournament in my lifetime. Still, if we're including the women as well, I'm still going to keep 2000 right there, or not 2000. Brandy Chastain. Why can't I remember the year? 99. Yeah, I'm still going to put 99 there just because a shootout to win it on your home soil, that's phenomenal. That will still be the best, at least the best ending ever for me. But I'll say yes to it as well. You can go to our Facebook page, Cheap Seats by Public House Media, and vote on that. We're going to have Zach Wolpoff, who, if you know Public House Media, you know Zach already because he's been on Your Soccer Passport, which has been a huge success for us here at Public House. So we're happy to have him join us. We'll touch on that as well as, of course, the Major League headlines. We're officially at the All-Star break. Yay, if you can sense the sarcasm there. We'll touch on that and a whole lot more. It's all coming up next. You're listening to the Cheap Seats presented by Squadcast.fm on the Public House Media Network.
This is Kim Meyer, the host of Choose to Rise here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Choose to Rise, where we talk about living with positive mindsets, how to increase our confidence, building our faith, and living out our life on purpose. A new show comes out via podcast every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And if you want to catch the episode live instead, stop by Public House Media around 6:45 Central Standard Time, Monday, Wednesday, Friday as well. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of Choose to Rise. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hi, this is Emily.
This is Lindsay.
And this is Elizabeth,
co-hosts of Beauties and Headcanons here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Once you are done with this episode, we hope you'll come check out our show, Beauties and Headcanons, where we talk nerdy to you about fandoms, fan fiction, and all pop culture for nerds that you can think of. A new show comes out every Friday.
Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Beauties and Headcanons. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hands up for your colors.
Back in the Cheap Seats on this Monday, July 16th, 2018. Christian Heimall, John Lauder here with you. World Cup concluding yesterday. France defeating Croatia 4-2 to claim just their second World Cup title and their first since 1998. You can be a part of this conversation by heading over to our Facebook page, The Cheap Seats by Public House Media, voting on the poll question, which is, was this the best World Cup tournament ever? We welcome in Zach Wolpoff now of Your Soccer Passport, which you could also hear on Public House Media. And Zach, let's start right there. Was this the best World Cup tournament ever?
In my opinion, yes, it was. Well, at least this was the best World Cup I've been alive to see and remember. I don't remember 98. I'm sorry, but I don't. Me personally, in my opinion, the U.S. not being in the tournament really helped get other nations time and other nations to focus on for Americans, because when the Americans are in it, what do most of the people in the media focus on? The Americans. They never focus on the other teams like Iran, the Moroccos, the Tunisias, the teams that are smaller that don't really get out of the group stage. And here we had people who actively talked about Morocco and Iran and things of that nature. And it was not all 100% U.S.-centric, that drives me nuts in World Cup coverage. And I may be in the dissenting opinion, but I liked having this whole array of nations, and all of a sudden, people are now popping up as experts on these teams. So it was nice.
It's always interesting to see how people will root for and where their allegiances lie once the U.S. is knocked out in prior World Cups. But with them not being in it this year, I mean, you kind of brought it up, but were you surprised at all to see some of the support? And you were in Russia for some of these group stage games. We should mention that. But were you at all surprised in terms of how much what the viewership was, what the excitement level was in the U.S. despite the U.S. not being in it?
No, it's the World Cup. I mean, soccer's a huge game here. it's becoming bigger and bigger, and we're not helping ourselves anywhere. But I'll get to that on another day. But it's growing, and the World Cup is the epitome of it. It's the top of the top. There was a very long period in U.S. history that if you wanted to watch soccer on television, you had to wait till the World Cup final. And that's all that you got to see. And that's how Pele became a household name in America. And that's why the New York Cosmos went after and got Pele, because U.S. soccer fans knew Pele. And only because Brazil was in the World Cup finals. And Brazil won the World Cup finals with Pele. That's how they knew him.
After we look at this World Cup, and again, a very exciting tournament, but the final was an interesting start with an own goal, exciting right at halftime, and then it seemed as though France kind of pulled away right at the start of the second half. What were your thoughts on the final and France winning their second World Cup title?
Well, Deschamps has been there before. Deschamps won in '98. He won the Champions League with Marseille in 1993, so he knows how to win. And the fact that he didn't do it at home in 2016 was really disappointing to France, the French football fans, and to him. And he knew that he needed to get the best team that he possibly could to move forward. Now, I thought the final was great. You had France, who's been building up with all these great young talents, and even their bench depth was amazing. You could field that team alone and put them out there. And they still probably would have done very well in this tournament. And against Croatia's always been there. They've always been a powerhouse. They've always done well in Europe's European qualifications and European championships. And now in the World Cup, they've always been there. And to finally see them in the final, I think a lot of people were very happy to see that. But to see the fact that France was able to just pull away as quickly and easily as they did, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that Croatia played 3 consecutive extra time games. That's an entire game extra that they had to play. Yep. And I think that really caught up with them, and they just looked tired. But the own goal by Hugo Lloris, pretty much an own goal by Hugo Lloris, when he gave up the ball and the Croatian guy was just right, Mandzukic was just right there and tapped it in. I'm like, what are you doing? I get it. You're excited. I get it. You're almost there. But just to tap it in like that and mess up playing the ball, you're supposed to be a world-class keeper. You're supposed to be. This is supposed to be the World Cup final, not a Tottenham fourth-round fixture in the League Cup. Come on.
So as we look at this past World Cup final, obviously France with a 4-2 victory over Croatia, an exciting final, really impressive and exciting semifinals more than anything else. But who was your MVP for this World Cup?
On the field or off the field?
We can go with both.
Off the field, the people of Russia. A lot of people were dissuading me to going because it's Russia. We all know what the Russian hooligans did in Marseille. First of all, I don't know if you've ever seen the Stade Velodrome or a picture of it, but going from one side of the stadium to another is an impressive feat onto itself because it's not like one of these arenas that wraps around. On the corners, they're separated, and there's only 10 rows of seats. And you have to physically climb over those to get into the main section to go to the other side. So we all saw that. We all saw what the gruesome footage was. But when I was in Russia, I never saw – there was no fights. There was no problems. There was no mob interaction whatsoever. And if you had a question, how do I get to blah, 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 there was people who would stop and help you with your questions. Or if you wanted to talk to them and at a bar, they would take your questions and talk to you about it. And they were just really friendly people, and it was completely different than what we see on the television and see on the news. We're like, oh, Russia's this cold and dark place. And what we're taught in school, I'm finding more and more out that what I was taught in school was just lies and propaganda about Russia. So that's what I'm finding out, and I'm just kind of like, why do we have to censor the truth so much?
Interesting. So kind of a thoroughly enjoyable tourist experience for you.
It was completely enjoyable. Actually, Putin said in a press conference before the final that he is working towards, if you went to the World Cup and enjoyed Russia, he's working towards getting some sort of expedited visa process for you to come back with your friends and with your families.
Wow. All right, that's pretty good. So off the field, the people of Russia did a phenomenal job, and it seemed like the country did a great job. But on the field, who was the most impressive player, the most valuable player for you in this FIFA World Cup?
Well, I mean, the media did pick Luka Modric, which, don't get me wrong, he was a great player. He did a great job with Croatia. Mm-hmm. Personally, I have to go with Chikachev. He was not supposed to play as well as he did for Russia. He came on, did amazing, scored 4 goals, and all of a sudden he's kind of looking like this dynamo. And it was supposed to be Smolov's World Cup. Smolov was supposed to be the guy for Russia, and he just wasn't. Mm-hmm. And he just kind of like did nothing. And I'm like, here's a guy who was rumored to be going to West Ham United. He probably would have walked across Russia to sign for West Ham if he had to. And he just couldn't get out of people's bag, and it was depressing to watch. And I was like, wow. So again, what we know as soccer fans and media may be completely different than what happens on the field.
Speaking with Zach Wolpoff here, inside the cheap seats on the Public House Media Network. John Lauder and Christian Heimall here with you on a Monday morning. And Zach, just give me some thoughts on England and also Germany. I guess England first, obviously, got further than anybody would have expected, all the way to the semifinals. Expectations were low, as they seem to be every World Cup for English soccer. What are your thoughts on the tournament England had and where they are moving forward?
Well, so let me just say that I'm glad Sam Allardyce was not their manager, because it would have been more and more of the same boring England. And it really would not have been fun to watch. This England team got further than I expected them to and did better than most expected them to, I think. And so that really leads to the future. But if you look at the U17 team and the U20 team, they are both doing incredibly well. They both won their championships. And that leaves the door wide open for, 2020, 2022, 2026, possibly adding a second star to their jerseys and keeping up with France, which I think, I don't know if anyone who followed any English person on Twitter was just going, it's coming home, it's coming home, it's coming home, it's coming home. That's all they were saying. It was a broken record. And when they wasn't coming home, they were still proud of their team, which I give them a lot of credit for. But I had to say, it will be coming home shortly. I don't know when, though. And a lot has to do with how do you deal with the development and the growth of the U17 and the U20 players on Premier League sides.
One of the biggest stories exiting the group stage, of course, was defending champion Germany not making it out. How surprised were you with Germany missing the group stage, and what might be the reason for it, and what should be the future for them?
It's effectively the World Cup hangover. I don't expect it with France, however, in 2022. Well, I may, but I got 4 years to debate that. I personally was a little bit surprised, but I think a lot of it had to do with how they played Mexico and the fact that they did not get a victory over Mexico on the first Sunday in Luzhniki. And that really just put rain on their parade, and they were just kind of like, they really stopped caring at that point. And even my German friend was like, I am so glad Germany's out of this tournament now, because I can finally, because they were just pitiful to watch. And I had to say, yeah, he does have a great point. And, Neuer was injured for most of this year, and Neuer was a big part of 2014. And without having your brick wall or a solid foundation back there, what are you going to do?
So obviously, Zach, 3 big stars did not make it as far as they would have hoped and as far as their countries would have hoped. Neymar, Messi, Ronaldo. Now, Neymar is certainly younger than the other two, but none of these guys have won a World Cup. Expectations, of course, and pressure is huge on all 3 of them. What are your thoughts on where those 3 are at in terms of World Cup play, and kind of where they're going moving forward? And do they need a World Cup victory to cement their legacy?
Actually, I was not surprised none of them made it. Let's start with Messi. He dragged Argentina on the last day of qualifying into the World Cup, into being qualified. He dragged them kicking and screaming, and then he did the same thing in Moscow. He was a guy who plays for Barcelona in Spain. Spain has the league. They have 2 cups, and then they have the Champions League. And he could be playing somewhere between 50 and 60 games, not including what he did for qualification. And then to go into the World Cup, he's exhausted. And to expect him to do that again and to bring Argentina back into the final, I could not see Argentina making the final. And so it was a little bit of a relief to see Argentina lose as quickly as they did, because Messi gets the rest and it makes the whole Champions League a little bit more interesting. Ronaldo. Portugal, we all saw Portugal-Spain. We all saw how great of a game that was. And I really thought that Ronaldo and Portugal may have had a chance to move on, at least to the quarterfinals. But to get for Portugal to lose as quickly as they did, that kind of surprised me and Ronaldo. Although, when you're debating the legacies of Messi and Ronaldo, I think Messi's going to have the leg up because he brought Argentina to the final. And we may see in 4 years, they both may still want to give it one last shot. Or they may say, nope, I'm done. And so it's really going to be interesting. And then you have the whole transfer move from Madrid to Juventus in the middle of the World Cup. And I'm like, couldn't this wait? The transfer window just opened. Come on. And Neymar has a problem. Neymar dives too much. If you look back at Neymar, in Neymar's first season in Barcelona, Barcelona was playing Celtic in the Champions League group stage, and Neymar went down really easily, and Scott Brown touched him Scott Brown, the captain of Celtic, slightly touched him with his boot, and Neymar went in a hissy fit as if his arm got shot off. And everyone in the media was just kind of like, what are you doing? This is not how you play the game of football. And then even when the World Cup was in Brazil in 2014, Pele even said that this kid's more worried about his haircut than he is about the game. And when you have the greatest player of the game ever telling you that he worries more about his hair than the game, that's a problem. And the fact that he changed his haircut, come on, that's just spot on analyzation by Pele.
Pretty much. So now we've got 4 years till Qatar in 2022, which will be in the winter. First off, your thoughts?
That's assuming that it's ready in time. Because keep in mind that in 1986 was supposed to be in Colombia, and 3 years before the World Cup, they told FIFA, we're not going to be able to do it. And that started a bidding war between the U.S. and Mexico for the 1986 World Cup. Mexico ended up winning the 1986 World Cup, and thus the folding of the original North American Soccer League. But I digress.
So, Zach, how do you feel soccer is doing sort of in general right now in 2018? Obviously, there were a lot of issues with sort of FIFA at large in this past calendar year, but many are saying, as we've talked about, this is the best World Cup ever. They've made tons and tons of revenue off this. So where does soccer as a whole internationally stand in your mind right now in 2018?
I think it did. It really helped FIFA because it didn't help Russia. It didn't help Putin's reputation so much because he invited Lauder into his box for a few matches, which I was not a fan of. But to put it in Russia, where everyone thought that this was just going to be a mess and hell on earth, and turn it around, and it wasn't. It was gorgeous. It was beautiful. Everyone acted appropriately. No one did anything crazy or stupid. In my mind, I thought it really helped both Russia and FIFA because FIFA has a tarnished reputation, and they're trying to make it better, and this, I think, really helped. But Qatar, if Qatar is successful, hypothetically, then it's better. It looks good on Qatar and it looks good on FIFA. But if it's a total and complete failure, then that looks terrible on FIFA. And the current FIFA president is going to have to be taking the rap for it. And he may step down and resign because of it, or at least be forced to. But to move it in the winter where you have the European schedule, everyone's playing in Europe, you have the Champions League and the Europa League going on, it's just, and you're in the middle of Major League Soccer playoffs at that point, it's just going to be a gigantic mess. And I really do think that a lot of teams aren't good, especially Europeans, aren't going to be putting their best players forward. They're going to be like, yeah, it's a Winter World Cup. We really don't care. We're more worried about the Champions League and the Premier League. And that brings up a whole other question. Do you start the Champions League earlier, and do you start the Premier League and your domestic league earlier because of a Winter World Cup? And do you take like 2 to 3 weeks off like they do here in the U.S.? It's a legitimate question that needs to be answered, and needs to be answered soon.
Zach Wolpoff, if you want to hear some of his thoughts prior to and during this World Cup, head over to thephmedia.com and check out some of the past episodes of Your Soccer Passport. Zach, we appreciate the time. Thank you so much. And another 4 years we're going to have to wait for the Men's World Cup, but should be an interesting 4 years.
Well, even the Women's World Cup next year in 2019, that's going to be fun to watch.
Can't wait. Going to be fun. And that one the U.S. is actually in and has a chance to win. So,
well, thank you, Title IX.
Exactly, 100%. Zach, we appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And Zach Wolpoff, we're back to wrap things up. MLB All-Star Week is here. We'll touch on all the latest news on the diamond. You're in the cheap seats on Public House Media, presented by Squadcast.fm.
This is Sam Kirby, host of Cinema Stories here on Public House Media. Thank you for tuning into the following broadcast here on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Cinema Stories, where we talk about movie and TV news and reviews, and maybe, just maybe, we'll learn a little something about ourselves. If not, then maybe I made you laugh a couple of times. I don't know. New episodes air bi-weekly on Tuesdays. Thanks again for checking out the totally spectacular following broadcast here on Public House Media.
How's it going, everybody? This is Keith.
And Katie, host of Coffee with Keith and Katie, here on Public House Media.
Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. When you're done here, I hope you'll check out our show, Coffee with Keith and Katie,
where we talk about our lives and relationship over a cup of coffee.
A new episode airs on Facebook Live every Monday and Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of Coffee with Keith and Katie.
Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Please rise for the singing of our national anthem. In the kitchen, please don't burn on the grill. It took a whole lot of trying just to get up that hill.
Back inside the cheap seats here on the Public House Media Network, presented, of course, by Squadcast.fm. John Lauder, Christian Heimall with you on this Monday morning, July 16th, 2018. Final segment of the show. As always, you should go to the Cheap Seats Facebook page. You know the drill. Check it out. Answer the poll question. Is this the best World Cup ever? Very simple, yes or no. And then also make sure you go to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, Stitcher, Robber, whatever. Play, rate, review, tell your friends, tell your grandparents, tell your dog, your cat, brother, sister, lizard, nephew, lizard, whatever. So one segment to go here. We'll talk some MLB as we are at the All-Star break. The Major League Baseball All-Star Game, of course, happening in Washington, D.C., as is the Home Run Derby. Though if nobody important is in the Home Run Derby, does anybody see it? Does it make a sound? Nobody really knows. But Christian, like we talked about in the open, American League's basically set already. Yeah. We can just go to the playoffs at this point. The only real interest is, will it be the Yankees in the wild card game or the Red Sox? But the National League is a train wreck. So sort of an interesting place for baseball right now as we head to the All-Star break.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm still kind of keeping my eye out in the West in the American League, just because Seattle is only a couple games back, so that could be interesting there, depending on what they do at the deadline. But the National League is where things get really exciting. I mean, and that's where this whole Manny Machado stuff is like kind of really draws me in. I could not care less, but reportedly, according to a couple of people, Todd Zalicki of MLB.com. Two teams have emerged, and John Paul Morosi, teams have emerged as the favorites for Manny Machado, and they are both in the National League. The Los Angeles Dodgers, which we talked about last week, and I don't know if I see a fit for them with Manny, but the team that really makes sense and has really come on strong over the last week has been the National League East leading Philadelphia Phillies, and that is really interesting to me.
It's crazy that they're the National League East leading Philadelphia Phillies. But look, they're in a great spot right now, just like the Braves. They're super young. They're back on the upswing. You could argue, like the Yankees last year, they're kind of a year early right now. Manny Machado will be a great fit there. I agree with you. Doesn't make a ton of sense in a Dodgers uniform, but it's the Dodgers. They're going to be in on these big stars all the time. There's still rumors floating about that the Yankees are in contention here. I really don't think it makes sense for them either. But a large part of me thinks they're doing that just to, scare the Red Sox, scare the Astros, scare some of these other teams in the American League. But a team like the Phillies, a team like the Brewers, who don't seem to really be in it at this point, but those are the kind of teams that really... Yeah, exactly. They need a guy like Manny Machado far more than the Red Sox or the Astros or the Yankees ever would. Because, the Yankees and the Red Sox, they need pitching. They don't need Manny Machado. They need more pitchers. But, Machado would look real interesting in a Philly uniform, that's for sure.
I think, and I think that makes the most sense because I was listening to a lot of talk radio over the weekend on a couple of long drives that I had this weekend. But Phillies also have a lot of dead money coming off the books this year. So they could actually afford to re-sign Manny Machado without going too far over the luxury tax. Which makes it really interesting. Now, the biggest differentiation between the Dodgers and the Phillies right now is the fact that it seems as though the Phillies are more willing to part with their top pitching prospect than the Dodgers are with theirs. And that might be the deciding factor. Adonis Medina, the Phillies' number 2 prospect, according to multiple people, as well as Franklin Colomi, their number 7 prospect, are guys that might be included in this deal. And the Phillies seem more likely to give up Medina than the Dodgers seem to be giving up Dustin May, who is their number 10 overall prospect. So, and understand this. This is not going to be a deal for the Dodgers where it's, Justin Turner for Manny Machado. That's not going to be the deal. Phillies are not going to give up, Rhys Hoskins for Manny Machado. They're going to give up a lot of prospects. You're going to see Machado traded for 4 or 5 prospects and maybe a current bench player on the 25-man roster. So don't expect big stars to come in this trade back to Baltimore. And the Orioles need to do this. I'm sorry, but from an actual baseball standpoint, Peter Angelos has been an idiot for a long time. And this is an opportunity to prove that he is doing something and that the Orioles front office is doing something for the future of their organization, because they have been in a spiral downward for the last few decades almost. It's been really, really bad for this team. They are, as we sit here at the All-Star break, they are 40 games out of first place. That's 40 games out of first place at the All-Star break.
I mean, they're right at the record for the most losses ever at the All-Star break.
Yeah,
they're right there.
John, they are 13 games. Thank God for Kansas City. If not for Kansas City, the Orioles would be far and away the worst team in Major League Baseball. But the Royals aren't much better, if at all. It's embarrassing. It's insane how bad they're. They need to do something to energize that fan base and sit there and go, you know what? We get it. We're out this year, but at least we're getting something in return, something to look forward to in the future.
Yeah, they've got to get prospects that can make an impact at the major league level. They have to do that. And the thing is, with a team like the Phillies, it makes, they are not the kind of team that's going to do a 2-month rental.
No.
If you're the Yankees or one of those bigger teams, you could afford to part with some of your prospects and do a 2-month rental because you're the Yankees and you've
Right.
got, the second best farm system in baseball after the Braves. But the Phillies are not in that situation. If they're trading for Manny Machado, they need to be able to sign him long term. And it really only makes sense that they would do it if that was the plan. But
right. I did have this little kind of brief moment where I kind of laughed at myself and said that would be hilarious and awesome. But imagine if the Phillies traded Jake Arrieta as part of this deal, and the guy that the Orioles gave up because they couldn't make him decent and goes and wins a Cy Young in a World Series with the Cubs, comes back at the tail end of his career and is just terrible.
that would, oh God, yeah,
it'd be really funny.
Disaster.
But I mean, the Phillies right now, this is a move both teams and franchises need to make, because this is a move that if the Phillies make it, makes them right now. I think a lot of folks are still waiting for the Nationals to turn it on, and I think a move like this solidifies the Phillies as a legitimate favorite in the NL East. Maybe not in the World Series, but in the NL East.
No, I mean the favorite in the World Series is whoever comes out of the American League. I think that's pretty clear at this point.
Exactly. So it's interesting, John. At the All-Star break, there is one team that is already looking for a new manager. Or will be at least looking for a new manager comes into the season. St. Louis Cardinals fired Mike Matheny on Saturday. They also relieved 2 bench coaches. Their hitting coach John Mabry and assistant hitting coach Bill Miller. So now bench coach Mike Schild is the interim manager here. And this has been a long saga of troubles in St. Louis for the Cardinals this year. Even though it looked as though they were going to be pretty impressive after acquiring Marcell Ozuna in the offseason.
Yeah, well, look, when you think of teams that would be firing a manager mid-season, the Cardinals are nowhere near the top of that list. I mean, this has been an organization that is a beacon of consistency, of professionalism.
Right.
And Mike Matheny, has had some good moments, but clearly things are not okay in St. Louis, which is shocking.
Right.
You expect this in Miami or, let's put it this way, not in St. Louis.
Right, exactly.
And I'm hearing rumors that they might be interested in Joe Girardi. What are your thoughts on that?
Wouldn't surprise me at all. I think Joe needed a year away from baseball, and that would actually kind of make sense. I think a year away from baseball for Joe Girardi and going to a franchise like that. The one thing I will always say about Girardi, as much as I hate the Yankees, he found a way to keep the clubhouse together, and that's where it looked as though Mike Matheny failed. Whether it was his public spat with Dexter Fowler, who also has issues with the owner reportedly, and the team president, to this, if you've read the article from Michael Saxon in The Athletic about Bud Norris, the 33-year-old closer who keeps, really kind of pushing and needling and almost, for lack of a better term, bullying 21-year-old Jordan Hicks, who is an incredibly talented young right-handed pitcher and reliever. It seems as though that is where Mike Matheny was fired, is the fact that he lost the clubhouse. Now, the Cubs and the Brewers have been great the last 2 years, so it doesn't help the Cardinals at all. But, making the World Series in 2013 where they lost to the Red Sox was Mike Matheny's kind of biggest thing that he's done there. He was a Tony La Russa guy, and I think that's what kept him afloat for so long. But these are the numbers of Mike Matheny, John. This is interesting. His first 4 seasons, he was 375 and 273. It's a .579 win percentage. Won 3 division titles, made the playoffs 4 times, including a World Series appearance in 2013. Since then, in his last 3 years, 216 and 201. It's a .518 winning percentage, nearly 60 percentage points worse. 0 division titles, 0 playoff appearances in the last 3 years. Granted, the Cubs and Brewers have gotten better, but it has been, it's been a tough road to hoe for Mike Matheny. And looking at it, I can't say I'm surprised that he's gone. It's just a little shocking that it's in the middle of the season.
Yeah, the numbers spell it out. So I'm not. Yeah, that's the shock, is that it's mid-season, because the Cardinals are not the type of team to do that. But it's clear that there's turmoil there, and they felt the need to make a change, so they made it. But it's just so surprising that it's in the middle of the season. Now, real quick before we get to our Mojo Monday here, what's going on with the home run derby? Why do we have to have all these guys no one cares about being the home run derby? Why?
There's a weird.
Why, Christian?
I don't understand. I don't understand why.
It's like LeBron in the dunk contest. Can we get the good freaking players in it? Come on.
And here's what I don't understand. I want to ask somebody about this, and actually, it's going to be kind of interesting. So, to give a shameless plug, Press Row coming up this Thursday. We do one show a month that is an hour long that covers an overarching theme. And this week we're going to touch on the the status of America's national pastime.
Nice.
And we're going to have John Flaherty, former New York Yankee catcher and now Yes Network analyst, as well as former Major League pitcher Bobby Jones, the lefty Bobby Jones with the New York Mets. They're going to join us. We're going to touch on a lot of things, but I am going to ask them why, if the All-Star game is broken, if All-Star Week is broken, it seems as though nobody seems to care anymore. The players certainly don't. The fans stop caring after the players stop caring. So how do we fix it? I don't know, John. I don't know if there's a way to maybe – we have all these incentive-based contracts, guys for plate appearances, guys for, winning a Gold Glove, winning a World Series. Why can't we put in something with the Home Run Derby in there? Like, hey, why isn't Giancarlo Stanton's contract have something like, dude, we'll give you an extra $10 million if you win the Home Run Derby? That's incentivizing the guys to actually, that's the thing. We've got to find a way to incentivize these guys. I'm sorry. I don't agree. I don't care what the numbers say. I don't agree that the Home Run Derby hurts a home run hitter's swing. You're a professional hitter. You can get yourself out of bad habits really, really easily. So you should be able to do that. I completely hate that argument that it ruins swings. But it's just, look, I'm looking at the bracket and, okay, Jesus Aguilar has been hitting the ball very, good home run hitter. Bryce Harper, great home run hitter, terrible hitter. Freddie Freeman can hit bombs. Rhys Hoskins came on fire last year hitting bombs. Kyle Schwarber hits homers. And then it gets weird. Max Muncy, Javier Baez, and Alex Bregman. Bregman's not a great home run hitter. Neither is Baez. Muncy has been a surprise this year for the Dodgers. So I don't hate it, but we got to find some way to incentivize it and some way to make it interesting. I've heard a couple of different takes that are kind of, I've heard some players say they would rather, the reason why they don't want to do it is because it's not like normal BP where you have a round of 5 pitches, a round of 3, a round of 7, like that kind of stuff. They would rather see it similar to actual BP, where you're not just swinging as hard as you can for 3 straight minutes and really tiring yourself out, which I understand that. And then I've also heard, and this was an interesting one, totaling up the home run distance, and that's how you determine the winner. That's just to see how far guys can hit it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think anybody cares about hitting a 300 and, for instance, Yankee Stadium, you can hit a 280-foot home run. Or you could do like Giancarlo did a couple of years ago and hit a 530-foot bomb up to the 5th level of whatever of the target field.
Yeah. Well, look, maybe the winner of the Home Run Derby, that league should get home field advantage in the World Series.
Nah, maybe. Who knows? But I really do think we need to incentivize it more. I think whether it's a contract, because who cares about the car? Who cares about what these guys have? And no offense, I don't want to say anything bad about a manufacturer like Chevy or anything like that. But these guys are not buying Chevys with their money. They're buying really tricked out Ford Raptors and those
Maseratis.
Exactly, ththose 3-wheel cars that Yoenis Cespedes likes to show up in randomly.
Yes,
they're not buying those. So, and they could probably buy Chevy if they wanted to.
Of course.
So, we got to find a way to incentivize it and make it fun because I'm sorry, I just really firmly believe that if you change the format to a more player, ask the players. What does it take for us to get you guys in there? What does it take for JD Martinez, for Mike Trout, for Jose Ramirez, for Cody Bellinger when he's healthy, for those guys to join and be a part of it? The only reason Bryce Harper is doing the Home Run Derby is because it's in D.C. If it wasn't in D.C.,
he would
Bryce
never
Harper
do it
wouldn't
otherwise.
be in. Yeah.
No.
So, I don't know. But, what changed in the last 20 years where it went from Ken Griffey, Mark McGwire, Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa, Jeff Bagwell to Max Muncy and Alex Bregman? What changed?
Yeah. I don't know. Why did we go from Dominique Wilkins and Michael Jordan in the slam dunk contest to your dad? It's like
my dad cannot. My dad can't dunk on a Little Tykes thing, so we're not.
So you know what? Maybe we should make it a Little Tykes hoop then.
Maybe we should.
But baseball to me, look, I find all the All-Star games to be pretty terrible. But I always felt like baseball was the best one, and now I feel like they're struggling with it too. So all of these
so
sports
weird.
leagues, yeah. You know what?
The
Bill
Home Run
Simmons
Derby
has
is now
talked about having,
fourth.
yeah.
Go ahead, Bill Simmons.
Yeah. No, I'm saying he's always talked about jokingly having a commissioner of all sports in America. I feel like we need one just to fix all these all-star games.
It wouldn't be a bad thing. I mean, I don't know. This was by the way, this was my bad mojo for my Mojo Monday was the home run derby. So I'm glad we talked about it and I could rant about it a little bit. So I'll just say my last thing and then I'll just say my last thing about it and then let you go. Like the home run derby used to be the pinnacle of All-Star Week. It used to be the number one thing, what everybody was so excited about. I still to this day remember vividly the 98 home run derby at Fenway Park, Griffey with the backwards hat, and him and Bonds just going at it with one another. Now, granted, obviously we know Barry was artificially, smacking balls, but like we've now gone to a point where it is the fourth most exciting part of All-Star Week. The most exciting part of All-Star Week now is the Futures game, which does not get the publicity that it deserves because it is so much fun. I went to the Futures game in 2013 when it was at Citi Field and Noah Syndergaard was starting. That was awesome. It was so much fun. The All-Star game is number 2 now just because it is a popularity contest, so the fans' favorite players are actually there, so you're going to get to see it. No, you don't have the moments anymore where Torrey Hunter's robbing Barry Bonds and Bonds runs out to center field and picks him up and like almost suplexes him. You don't have the moments where Derek Jeter forces Cal Ripken over to shortstop in his final All-Star game. You don't have the moment where Jeter, understood that Nomar should have been the starting shortstop and he does Nomar's toe tap. You don't have those anymore, but you still have the biggest and most popular players there because it is a popularity contest. And then the third one, which is still one of my favorites, is the Celebrity and Legends All-Star Softball game. Like, that's just a lot of fun. I used to remember Gary Thorne doing play-by-play for that at like 1 o'clock in the morning on ESPN. But that's just fun because people like seeing the legends and they like seeing the celebrity stuff. The Home Run Derby is now the fourth most exciting part about it because we cannot find a way to get these players, to get these, top, and this is Major League Baseball's problem. They don't know how to market their own freaking sport. They don't know how to do it. And it's insane to think that we cannot get JD Martinez, again, Mike Trout, we cannot get Paul Goldschmidt, Joey Gallo, even though he hits like literally he hits my weight and can't, but he hits bombs when he actually does make contact. We have to figure out a way to incentivize the players to do this, to make it exciting again. Or you need to hide it on like Sunday night like you do the Futures game. Put the Futures game on Monday night in prime time, hide the Home Run Derby somewhere. Figure it out, Major League Baseball, because this was, at one point, the pinnacle of Major League Baseball's season. We didn't care about opening day. We didn't care about baseball until September. We cared about the Home Run Derby. And now it's embarrassing, and we need to change it, because otherwise, the All-Star Game, as it currently stands, is going to go away. And that is it's a problem. It really, really is.
For sure. So I'll get right into my good mojo. On a Monday here, and it's going to be for American tennis. I mean, American tennis has certainly had its issues. I mean, especially recently, it's been a long time since the days of Pete Sampras and Andre Agassi, but Serena Williams continues to do it at a high level, getting to the Wimbledon final. We talked about it a bunch in the first segment. Didn't win, but still a very impressive overall performance. And then John Isner, to be able to get himself to the semis and to play such a tremendous match against Kevin Anderson, going to 50 games in that fifth set. Some props to American tennis. It's certainly hasn't been at the level that I think Americans would like of late. But, we still have Serena, and Isner gave everybody a good show. So that's my good mojo, some American tennis here on a Monday.
I don't know if I've ever heard anybody say that. Good mojo for American tennis. It's been a long time since that, but you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And hopefully it gets better for the U.S. Open. Would love to see, John Isner there again towards the end of the tournament. So, all right, been a fun show. Happy to have you guys with us. As always, don't forget to head to our Facebook page, Cheap Seats by Public House Media, and vote on the poll question, best World Cup ever, yes or no. You can follow John and I on Twitter if you want, at Chris Heimall, ChrisHeimal. That's me. You can follow John at JON_LAUDER. That's John over there. As always, subscribe, rate, review, share us with your friends and family and pets, I guess, as we discussed earlier, lizards, snails, whatever you feel like doing. Just put it out in the woods and see if a bear clicks on it. See what happens. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher.com, Spreaker.com. Of course, as always, head to thephmedia.com. Support the show, support the other great podcasts that we have here on Public House Media, and get yourself some Cheap Seats gear. Please, seriously, do it. Just, you want to, so you might as well just do it already. As always, big thanks to our presenting sponsor, Squadcast.fm. If you want to learn how to get your own podcast put together, check them out, Squadcast.fm. And we'll see you next week on the Cheap Seats.